Jules Hobdy, Jerri Hobdy, Jules Haines, and Janine from Universal. So, and bear with me. So Lucy, why don't you tell us a little bit about your business?
Thanks, Diane. Good morning, everyone. It's fun to be here with all of you. I'm Lucy Penfield. My studio is Lucy Interior Design. We're based in Wayzata, Minnesota, and South Florida. We are known for our residential high-end. We love cabins. We love coastal. So we design with long-term generations and love everything joyful and beautiful.
Nice.
Jerri?
Yeah, so I'm Jerri Hobdy. I am a furniture and lighting designer, and I develop furniture that you all shop and work directly with manufacturers, showrooms, and then also major retailers to bring new collections to every market. And then I have a showroom that's very focused on sustainability in Denver. It's my personal studio and little incubation for change space. So yeah, I'm on the product side primarily.
Hi, I'm Jules Haines. I've got a brand called the Haines Collection, and I'm from England, obviously. We have an award-winning resale platform for luxury brands who have surplus. So our core mission is to help reduce waste in the industry, and we do that by connecting with these brands, talking to them about what they have that maybe they don't need anymore. It could be X display, it could be a project that the direction changed. So it's a range of brands, interior designers, who have textiles, wallpaper, etc., that need to be rehomed and are still beautiful and elevated.
Good morning. I'm Janine Wagers with Universal Furniture, and I'm the Vice President of Visual Merchandising here. So we're just, I guess, the manufacturing side of this is we're trying to do everything we can to better our future for all of our younger people here, and we just wanted to share some of that with you today on the panel. So,
great. So that's the first question I'm going to ask. So everybody is in businesses that have sustainable practices, and you are all in different layers of the business. So it's going to be a really interesting conversation about how sustainability is coming in. Lucy, let's start with you again. And as a designer, what are some of the sustainable practices that you look for when you're doing a project and also when you're sourcing product?
Yeah, great. It's we love to shop from local artisans to reduce the footprint of the movability. We also love to shop recycled. I spend a lot of time down in the antique business, down the antique center, et cetera, finding textiles like Jules, as well as remnants and upcycle new looks with our clients. Also, we look for B Corp organizations that are mindful of their work and et cetera.
And Jerri, how about for you, as a product designer, how do you incorporate sustainability into the things that you make?
Yeah, so I'm on the supply chain side of everything that happens, and I'm trying to help make sure that there are better options for people like Lucy to procure and people like yourselves to procure. And so we identified 3 major areas of opportunity, and those are reducing waste, reducing toxins, and reducing carbon. And so that personal initiative for Meno came from looking at what the SFC does, the 6 things that they've identified under the umbrella of sustainability that are really the biggest opportunities for the furniture industry. And then we actually overlaid that with what the IPCC reports say and what the scientists are saying. And there's Venn diagrams when you look at how those overlap. And it came down to waste is an issue, toxins is an issue, carbon is an issue. And so that's what we focus on. And so anytime I'm designing a new product, I'm working directly with the manufacturers and the raw material suppliers, and basically just saying how much can we do on those 3 areas, and how much better can we get on those 3 areas. So we're always looking at, waste, toxins, carbon as the big 3. And we'll probably get into more specific examples as to what that really looks like, but that's really always our focus and how we really start those conversations and try to make sure that everyone's pointed in the right direction so we can make progress.
And Jules, from your perspective, how do you incorporate sustainability? How do you communicate sustainability?
I think the communication, that's a real key point, because particularly when I started the brand 5 years ago, nobody was really talking about sustainability in the way that they do now, and it's really big in the UK and Europe. So a lot of it has actually been education. It's been showing that it's fun and it's easy, and once you sort of change that mindset, and you do just one thing, then it has a knock-on effect, and then you think about the next thing and the next thing. So a lot of what we do is connecting with interior designers and showing them, as you said, just how easy it can be. And we have over 3,000 products on our website, and it's constantly changing, which kind of keeps it exciting, but it just shows that sustainability can be kind of sexy and exciting as well, because lots of people think of sustainability where it was maybe 10, 20 years ago as not very appealing and not really the value that they're going to offer their clients. And so the past sort of 5 years, that's been a really great conversation that we're having, and we now have people seeking us out, particularly, you know, for looking for luxury, high-quality products that, are sustainable and technically secondhand, but they're basically brand new. They're just looking for a new home.
Your suit's secondhand and you look beautiful.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
And
There you
Janine,
go,
here-
there's an example.
Yeah.
Here at Universal, Janine, what are some of the sustainable practices that Universal is putting into place to help further that story here?
Well, we have many things that are happening here, and I think the first one that got me started in the field is the tree. And if you guys have been to the cafe and noticed the log slabs that we have in the cafe and the tables, that was from a tree that I used to drive by all the time, and it was a gorgeous tree. I'm a tree hugger, you know, and I was like, every time I drove by the tree, I was like, oh, you're so magnificent. You know, it had this huge canopy, and it was just beautiful, beautiful. And one day I noticed there was a big spray painted X on it, and I just was like, oh my gosh, what, you know, I've got to do something. I've got to save this tree. I've got to try to stop this. And of course that was too late. But then I said the next best option is for me to make something of this tree. And so I called the city and got connected with who was in charge of the tree. Anyway, long story short, we got the tree, we took it to a sawmill, and we let it sit there for 5 years to dry out, and then we slabbed it. And then we made all of our cafe furniture with it. And so this tree still lives on. And that got me kind of like started in like, okay, well now how can we do more things like this to, you know, not as in our manufacturing, but also just helping, how can we enhance, you know, bring these products in and just keep things going and going and going instead of being in the landfill, in the dump. So,
Can you tell us about your bottles, or the glasses?
yeah, I mean, the tree was just the first one, but then we also, if you have drinks with us this afternoon, you will see that we have taken wine bottles and we cut those and we serve beer in those glasses now. They've turned into glasses, and the beer bottles we cut and polished, and those are now wine glasses. So we kind of went into that. And then if we have leftover stone, we make them into Lazy Susans. And so anything that we all like brainstorm, my team, we brainstorm and say, okay, how can this be reused again? And, you know, as presents and gifts, employee giveaways and things like that. So, and our factory in Conover does a lot too that I can get into in a little bit, but I don't want to keep talking. Everybody else needs a chance. So.
And recycling and reusability is such a big piece is such a big piece, and all of you have mentioned that you're doing that now in your businesses, right? You're recycling furniture, you're doing all this, you use older pieces in your with your clients and things like that. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, I love that story. I love that story about the tree. That is just amazing. But let's talk a little bit about the reusing things and how that impacts sustainability. And is that a bigger piece, or is that is an easy thing to do maybe for clients? So talk a little bit about some of the ways that you incorporate reused or recycled things into what you're doing in your businesses. Jerri, I'm actually going to start with you because you're a product designer. So how do you do that? How do you make sure that you're getting those recycled pieces, those reusable pieces into your product, or making sure your product is reusable for the next person?
Yeah, so as a product designer, my job is quite literally to put new products into the market. And so that was a little bit of a challenge when I started trying to figure out, okay, how do I incorporate what I'm preaching into what I actually practice as a professional? That is my livelihood. So I started looking at the raw materials supply chain. And just to speak to Universal, I did a product tour really quickly. I will admit I've never been here, and I've been coming to market for 10 years, and I was pleasantly surprised, and we were going to try to figure out who the merchandiser was because it's so good. So now we know. But when you're looking for new product, I feel like that's a big question that I hear a lot from interior designers. It's like, okay, we understand we can use antiques and vintage and all these things, but what about new product? Like, I need a new sofa for my client. Textiles are going to be your biggest component that you can look at. So there's a lot of fills that are changing out there. That's great. And in fact, the biggest way to reduce the carbon footprint of a single piece of furniture is actually to change the materials. So replacing, for example, PU foam with a coconut fiber foam will reduce the carbon footprint of one sofa on average by 40%. And we're talking at least a couple metric tons of carbon for every single sofa that's made around the world every single day, you know, years and years and years. So the furniture industry has a huge, huge impact. But as far as reused or recycled or upcycled materials go in the raw supply chain, Valdez Weavers is a really, really great example. They have a showroom just up the street here. Almost every major showroom uses their fabrics, including Universal, and they have a ton of them. So everybody wants performance fabrics still. Those are usually riddled with PFAS chemicals. One way that you can spec new sofas for your clients and get the performance is to look for Inside Out, which is one of Valdez's lines, Sustain, which is one of their lines, Ease, which is one of their lines. And the Sustain line specifically, that's spelled with a U, Sustain, is made with the Sequal initiative, SEAQUAL. So they're actually working with that mission-driven organization to take sea litter plastic, spin it into fibers, and then that's what the Valdez Weavers then takes to make their Sustain line of textiles. And so that's quite literally taking secondhand plastics that have already unfortunately made their way into our waters. They're taking those out and they're turning them into performance fabrics. Those do not have any added PFAS. They're not chemically treated. They don't have any red list known carcinogens, any of that, because plastic is inherently waterproof. Like, that's the whole problem. And so when you turn plastic into a tiny fiber and then you spin it into a surface area of textile, it's inherently going to repel liquids. You literally do not need to add the additional harmful chemicals to make it performance. So as you're walking through the showroom, in fact, some of their main white sofas here are going to be Valdez textiles. You can look and ask, and you can do this in any showroom you go to. Say, is this part of the Sustain from Valdez Weaver? Is this Inside Out from Valdez Weavers? Is this Ease, Material Works carries it. So you can go to any of your new suppliers and ask about that, and that is going to be a new product that is using upcycled, technically secondhand material and giving your clients the performance they want, and then also starting to reduce the toxic load that you're putting in your client's home. So that's super easy. It's already available to all of you. You just have to know what to ask for. And that's what you should ask for.
Right. And that goes for any performance fabric company too,
Yeah.
because there are other performance fabric
There are
companies
others, yeah.
who also have big initiatives. I know Milliken is using plastic bottles.
Yes,
and,
yeah.
And I know even Krypton has taken the PFAS out of their chemicals. So
Yeah.
everybody is working really hard to make performance fabrics healthier and with less chemicals. So definitely, when you go to talk to somebody, if you're going directly to, if you go to Interwoven and you're talking directly to your fabric people, ask them what they're doing. Ask them for those sustainable initiatives. And as Jerri said, when you're going to your furniture manufacturers, ask them what they're using and why, because everybody does have these initiatives that they are working to make the planet a better place. And Jules, I'm going to ask you, because you recycle stuff. So like, you bring things that are older, you make them new again. Talk a little bit about your business and how that works for you.
Yeah, thank you. So we do a mixture of recycling and upcycling. Technically, we upcycle, so we work with over 100 brands, probably lots that you've heard of, British brands like Fermoy, French, Pierre Frey, Christopher Farr, and we work directly with them to ensure that even the small pieces don't go to waste. So sometimes it could be half a yard, and we will make that into a cushion or a lampshade. Sometimes it could be maybe 30 or 40 meters that through the print process came out slightly the wrong color. So there's like a 3% tolerance, but obviously it has to match the books and the samples that are out there. But that's a lot of waste. So for them, they obviously don't want to have it, they can't have it on their website. So we work with them to make sure that it's rehomed, resold in a beautiful, luxury, elevated way. And we feed into their sustainability policy and their goals by working closely together. We've also done some interesting collaborations with fashion brands as well. So obviously the cotton that you wear in your clothes, the same cotton that was going to be on your seating. So we had a collaboration with Levi where they had their surplus product, maybe it was a jean that the button came off or something, and they ended up collecting all of this, and with us we made patches that maybe went on the back, or maybe a denim jacket that you changed the inside of the collar, and it was just really to sort of show that you can be really creative, and I think that's a lot of where people get a bit stuck. They kind of can't imagine what it could be, so we spend a lot of time either doing like DIY or working closely with upholsterers. A lot of upholsterers come to us, say that the interior designer wants this to be a really sustainable ottoman in the middle of a sitting room, like what can they use? And they're already using really great pieces inside that are all degradable. So yeah, we really focus on bringing that conversation, and just as you said, like asking questions. I think that's a really key point, and I think lots of people don't ask those questions when they go into stores. And I think even just us as like consumers, everyday people can just ask those questions, and if they don't have the answers, it actually just makes them think, "Oh, am I doing that right? Can I do better?" So yeah, it's a big part of the conversation.
So how do you do some of your sourcing? Because you're talking about finding small pieces of fabric, larger pieces of fabric, different things. How do you, and I'm sure it goes way beyond there too, right?
Yeah.
How do you, that sounds like, you know, a treasure hunt kind of deal that you have there.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? How have you created those connections where you find these products that are slightly, you know, might be thrown away otherwise, but then you incorporate them into new product?
Well, I guess I'm just really ballsy and I just walk up to people and talk to them. I think, and particularly when I started the brand, there was a bit of people going, I don't really understand how you had my fabric. For example, you know, we only sell to trade and I didn't sell it to you. But because we work with interior designers who client might have changed their mind and they're left with like 7 meters of fabric, or even like headboards and things like that. And a lot of it is communicating. I mean, the reason we're all here today, communicating the importance of it. Like, it's not for us. We're all going to be dead. This is for generations to come. And then we're the ones that have been the mass consumers and for decades have been just take for whatever the cheapest, and we don't really care what, you know, our sofa's made out of because it's half the price of one that is made by hand and solid wood, etc. So I feel a real responsibility to try and change the path, the trajectory of where we're going. Yeah, I just go and connect, and actually anyone who's in this sustainability and really cares, like everyone's been really amazing, and people connect with me, and you know, our plan is to be out here, and so I've already had some really amazing connections with great brands who are like, yes, we have so much textile waste, we don't know what to do with it. It's not their day job, you know, they're busy doing other things, but at the moment it's just a huge issue that's mounting up, and they realize now that it's a problem.
And Janine, I'm going to ask you a similar question, because with Universal, like obviously textiles, you work with textile companies, but there's so much more. There's woods, there's things like that. What are some of the practices for product that Universal is putting in place to make their products more sustainable for the consumer?
Well, the product exactly is, you know, it's kind of out of our control right here because it is made in Vietnam. Right. And we also have a facility in Conover, which we do work with to for the short runs of fabrics that are left, and leather scraps. We're making bags out of those. The ladies, the sewers, take the scrap fabric home and make things that then they sell. So we're trying to be efficient with that, with all of the samples that are up there that are not being used but now are giving their second life. The problem that we're running into is that Interwoven, we order samples in to look at all of these fabric choices that we then choose the ones that we want to put on the upholstery, and then what do we do with the samples? You know, a lot of times I ask the reps to come pick the samples up. We sort them back through, and some companies are for that and some companies are not. They don't want to waste the manpower to do that, and so then we try to find people around here that will use those samples and make things out of them, quilts or bags, or just even clothing. So, but that's a big problem in the upholstery industry right now. I know in New York, the garment industry, there are facilities that they will come pick up, And I'd contacted them, and they said, we cannot do it. We don't come down to North Carolina. We're only in New York. So that's, I think, a real issue that maybe somebody can, maybe try to solve. That
We need that down here, right?
Yes, I mean.
If you need a startup idea, there's one.
Yeah, so-
Well, I've done a
You
bit
can
of
open your
work
US
actually.
branch, yeah.
Yeah, well, I have done a bit of research exactly this issue, and most big brands I speak to, they say I have boxes of samples. So that is a project that we're working on at the moment. But actually, there's quite an interesting statistic that 82% of a product's impact on the earth comes from the design stage. So I've actually gone back and I did some analysis and I created some content about the kind of samples that I come across and actually how easy are they to work with, because there's only so many quilters or makers and things like that. And if they've got a metal rivet in it, then it can't be recycled. If it's got glue in it, if it's got paper in it, like even the paper, is that paper recyclable? And these are the kind of questions that I've been now filtering back to the brands that I work with, saying this is actually what you need to think about. So I work really closely with Famoy, and they just have a sticker that goes on the back that's really easy to take off. And actually, some of the research that I've now done, the shredding of the samples, paper that is just stuck on the back, it doesn't actually need to be removed. It can go through the shredder as well, which is great. But it needs to go back to the design stage and that right at the beginning of when they are even thinking about the fibers, etc. They need to then think about the whole waste. And there's a legislation coming in Europe that's extended producer product responsibility. So it's coming in to say that these brands, when they make a product and put it out there, they actually need to think about the end of life as well, and that will be law. And so I think it's really great, that this EU legislation is coming in, and hopefully it will filter out, around the world.
I think you're going to see more and more conversations about sustainability. Next market, even this market has been different because regulation is coming across the ocean, and it's going to force change here, just the way that California regulation has changed the upholstery industry for years. So I think that the manufacturers and the showrooms that aren't already thinking about this will certainly see themselves falling behind, because it's already something that we're beyond needing to pay attention to.
Well, and I know in certain aspects, the fabrics, all these swatches, because some of them are, they all make different sizes, 12 by 12s, and some are almost a half yard cut. But I've heard that you can make insulation for homes out of that. But again, that's not, that's in the urban areas, and so we're kind of we just need to change the mindset, I guess, of some of these builders that, hey, this could be a great insulation instead of using, the asbestos and all the other things that go into a home. So, I think it's just everybody needs to open their eyes a little bit to how can we reuse this in what industry? Just because it started out here in furniture, let's take it somewhere else and maybe make it useful.
Well, if you don't mind if I jump in, a really great resource for finding those sorts of things. So you guys specify sometimes more than just furniture. You're doing aspects of the built environment as well, renovation, moving walls. Go to the Parsons Healthy Materials Lab. It's literally a library of free information. They link straight out to the product. So I'm renovating a 1912 Craftsman bungalow right now for myself, and have used, she's like, I've seen it. And I've got, even me, like as much as I know about supply chain, I don't typically work in the full built environment at that same scale. And so I've gone to the Parsons Healthy Material Lab site and like, how am I going to reseal these wood floors? Like, and make sure that not only is it healthy for who's going to live in the home, but also the fabricator. Like it's really a conversation, I think, of stewardship. Like if you have the gift of design and creative problem solutioning, this is a conversation of stewardship. How do you steward your creative skill set, and how do you steward the homes of the people you're designing for, and how do you steward the skill set of the craftsman? Like it's a stewardship conversation.
That question.
Yeah.
It is about stewardship. I think stewardship too with
That's
with
really
your
we should call
client.
it stewardship, not sustainability.
It-
That's
not a bad
what it
idea.
really
It's
comes down to.
designed for good. The Parsons class, you
Yes.
can take the
I know,
class
yeah.
too, which is fabulous, just for non-credit, but very
so
informative.
if you want to just go learn more and you don't want to pay, well, I guess you could make a donation to the university, but Parsons is a great resource.
Yeah,
it's a great
exactly.
resource.
I was going to say, just for many of you that are small business owners and entrepreneurs, we start with our kind of on branding and discovery process with our clients, feeling them out instead of kind of hard hat, but really an easy conversation. How do you feel about sustainability and circularity? So we right away feather in their old products and try to bring new life to them instead of just designing all new and fresh. And I think many of our clients welcome that. And the other thing is, we've built a great relationship. We're right by our Minneapolis Design Center, and there are 30 textile brands, and I have a wonderful relationship with them, and I buy their wing samples that are discontinued, and so that we use for remnants and upholstering pieces, so you can start there. I also have about a dozen companies throughout the country that have taken they have bolts of fabric, often remnants from their workrooms, and that's their business, and they are again discontinued, and so I purchase from them. So I think starting in that level. The other thing I was going to say, I have wonderful relationships and build relationships with your local antique and vintage dealers, and often when they're out on buying trips, they sort of know what we're looking for, and I get DM'd, something hot and fabulous. So finding the little diamond in the rough.
That is true. We deal vintage, and we've got a lot of people that are like, when you find this, and no one that picks loves that more than to be able to shop for someone else. So, yeah.
Lucy, I'm going to continue on that, though. When you're here at market, or you're at any market sourcing product, whether it's furniture or lighting, whatever it is, what are there things that you look for specifically to make sure that there's a sustainability element to that?
Well, I would say I'm looking at, yes, that's a good question. I know, of course, all the big brands and love them, and for sure the questions about where your products and fabrics company. But I loved going to Shop Object and the Antique Design Center and the suites at Marketplace, because those are often small businesses doing hand-blocked pieces, one of a kind, unique, and so for me it feels good to help them build their brand, and they also are oftentimes an emerging designer. I might be a little seasoned, but I was telling Kayla, you're glowing back there. But helping them build their brand in a sustainable-minded way, and they often already are.
So talking about sustainable-minded, right? What are you finding with the customers? Now, some of you are in businesses that are very sustainable. What are you finding? Are you finding people are looking for that more than they may have been 5 years ago? I'm going to start with Jerri at the end. Do you have clients who come in, customers who come in, who are, sorry, Jerri is here.
That's okay.
Janine, all these J's are going to confuse me the whole time.
It is.
Janine, I'm sorry. Do you find you have customers and clients coming in more now looking for that sustainability piece than there were in the past 5 years?
I think people are aware of that, and they want to hear about it. We're making steps to get there to do. We've looked at Sequal before. We've looked at, we use STI fabrics that are out of the original plastic kind of yarn. And so we're doing that, and we're trying to get certifications overseas. But most of our work is at our facility in Conover, reusing like all of their wood chips and wood shavings to run their boiler heater in the winter, and their leather scraps, like I said. And then like here, the city of High Point is now recycling styrofoam.
Oh my gosh!
So, which to me was a really major factor of encouragement, because we sort all of our styrofoam when we open boxes. We have to pull the tape off of it, but it takes a little extra time. But I feel like we were doing a really big thing for the environment, because we actually take ours to the facility because we don't trust it. We want to follow through, and we carry it there, and drop it off, and then they melt it down into nuggets. And these nuggets are like, kind of really heavy, like good-sized nuggets. And then those are shipped to New Jersey to make molding out of. So it's becoming, full circle. But the styrofoam was a big step for the city of High Point, because that was one of the most major landfill, problems there. And we recycle all the cardboard. So the city is doing a much better job, doing all this, I think, to make a step in the right direction.
Right, and that's great that you can communicate that now, but do you find that customers are coming in specifically looking and asking about sustainability practices?
I'm just going to be honest, because my job is done once
It's
market
right.
starts. I would have to ask the sales force for that. But,
Okay.
I
did
just
just
feel
ask-
proud. I just feel proud that we're making these steps, and that we're proud to have this take part in our showroom.
So Lucy, as a potential universal client, do you ask about sustainability
Yes,
practices?
yes, absolutely. I just met with Joe upstairs to tour some new things for a project we have in South Florida. And we did talk about the sustainable side of things, and he was going to follow up with a few, get some answers. Some things he knew, and anyway, it was a wonderful conversation.
Yeah,
And
but
I think
that's why
saying,
this panel is so important, because we're not
Yes.
saying, oh yeah, we've got it all figured out.
we
Like,
don't know.
this is
Right.
an approachable thing. We're all trying to figure it out. You're asking questions. You're being transparent. Like, that's really the point. It's
Yeah.
progress, not perfection. And I think
Right,
that's
making the
okay.
steps.
And
Taking
Jerry,
baby
for
steps.
you, so
Sorry,
you put these practices into place in your business because that's your value, right? Do you have customers that are coming in looking for specifically sustainability? What are they looking for? And are they giving you ideas of new ways to be sustainable?
Yes, yes, and yes. My primary client base are manufacturers and showrooms and retailers. I think if I was waiting for the market to be asking for that, then we would be too late. So as a product designer, it's my job to look at culture and look at what's out there and look at things that are available and to be a synthesizer of things and put it all in these pretty packages and say, you know what, you may not know about this, but this is the next best thing that you're going to want. So it's really up to people like me that are at that 82% impact inflection point in the concept phase of design to say, what does the supply chain look like? If I specify this wood finish, is the factory actually able to accomplish this? How does that affect the price point for the sales team? So there are a lot of product designers that are on the back end doing these things, and there is so much product out there that already is better, but it's a very long chain and game of telephone to get to you all, and then again to the consumer. And so that's why you hear people saying, like, well, ask the questions. And I know that kind of sounds like a cop-out, but it's really just, we're trying to connect what is already happening and make sure that information gets all the way to the end user. And so that's why, like I was saying, and Lucy did, I walked around and toured and just looked to see what is already being done that maybe the sales team isn't even aware of yet. And I can give a few examples. They use Moore & Giles leather. Mont Blanc is one of the lines. Mont Blanc is actually certified carbon neutral. That is unfreaking believable that an actual cowhide leather is certified carbon neutral. And we've been working very, very closely with Moore & Giles and Beverly, who's the head of their sustainability, and they are doing it right, y'all. And these are verified carbon offsets. So the leathers that you choose, even if you're like, okay, I just need to make sure it's Mont Blanc, or Tribeca is the other line that they use, specify those leathers on your upholstery. That right there is going to make sure that at least your covering, which is however many yards or square footage of material, is carbon neutral. So there are ways that things are already being done. It's really just connecting the stuff that I'm specifying, people like me are specifying, with the end user and purchaser so that we all just know about it. So that's really
and
encouraging.
The hard part is following through with that and
Yeah.
getting it to the public knowledge. And on our website, the knowledge of that, because a lot of our fabrics, use 60 water bottles per yard. And it's just hard to follow through after we've chosen the fabrics and it's going on the frame, and then to try to communicate that and get all that information out to the consumer.
I think there's also the emotional piece, because there's the science piece, which you're smart about, and there's the emotional piece. And I think when we're working with clients, we are building for the, as you mentioned, Jules, the next generation and the generation beyond. And how does that make us feel, and how can we do better? So there's the science and the emotion.
And Jules, I'm going to come to you because, again, in Europe, you're a little bit ahead of us on the sustainability scale than we are here in the United States, right? So do you find people come to you looking for that sustainability piece, and what are they looking for? And the second part of that question is, how do you communicate out the sustainability practices in your business?
Yeah, I think it's been amazing. It's really changed in the last 5 years, and places that weren't really touching on sustainability. You know, there's a huge international trade fair called Decor that I was hosting all their sustainability talks, and that just wasn't on their radar like even 3 years ago. So I feel like it's really coming. I feel like the press, like I work closely with House and Garden magazine, and they had a dedicated September issue that was all about sustainability. Like I really feel like the people who have the power to communicate, and I think the communication is such a key thing, whether you're a brand trying to put it out there, and loads of brands are doing great things, but don't talk about it until you ask a specific question or speak to the right person who actually knows. So I guess that's, you know, communicating internally to the sales team to make sure that's one of the first things that they say, because at the moment it's probably not the first thing they're asked about. And so kind of changing how people walk into a store, whether they say, you know, ask about the credentials before the price and things like that, you know, that will hopefully come. But yeah, it's totally changed, and it's really exactly the questions that we get from interior designers, and they get that from their customers. And they're like, we've been specified this, but they want to make sure that it hasn't got any harmful materials in it, and they've got children and pets that are going to sit on the sofa, so we want to make sure that there's no chemicals, and it's different over here, but in the UK and in Europe, we have a big issue with fire retardancy and the chemicals that are used in that, which, you know, as an industry, we're all trying to battle the government against it, because at the moment you have to put a lot of really bad chemicals. Yeah, you probably know about that, but you guys are better at that.
We have that here too, I think.
Yeah, and
It's
it
called
retardant is-
PFAS.
Yeah.
Google it.
And it's so bad, and it leaks out into the person who's working with it, the person who's sitting on it, like all of these things. And I think that kind of highlights the issue that we're all in a different place on our sustainability journey. And as long as you're somewhere on it, whether it's just you have a reusable water bottle, or as a brand you've made sure that you know, you don't use any you know, plastics in your packaging, or you use brand tape instead of plastic tape. Like, it's all of these small things that add up. But there's definitely, I mean, in Europe, and there's also parts of Europe that are further ahead than the UK, it's definitely a conversation, and it is driving consumers to pick specific brands because of those credentials, and people will decide not to. And as you were saying, Lucy, people have now taken on the responsibility, and they feel it, and they feel that it's up to them, and that is the value. They would rather put their money into a product or their services into a field that they really care passionately about, and that will last the generations. Because now, maybe before, we didn't have the awareness of how bad we were damaging the environment, and how much, and for us, that was COVID. Like, a lot of us woke up and thought, hell, what are we doing to the earth? And then that had the positive knock-on effect that we're all suddenly thinking, oh, what can I do? And there's lots.
Well, in that space too, I think with one of the biggest, easiest ways to you know, be more sustainable for a consumer is to not buy fast furniture, to not buy fast fashion, and those kinds of things. Are you seeing a shift in that? Are you seeing that, like, is it better to spend that money up front with something that's going to last you a lifetime than buying something that's going to last 5 years and it ends up in a landfill, right? So how are you guys working to promote that so that people will spend the money up front, or, you know, buy the better piece, and then, but they can have it forever? How do you communicate that? How do you talk to people about, hey, if you do this simple thing, it is going to make, you are being more sustainable, and it's going to help the environment, it's going to help, you know, it's going to be healthier for your home. And Lucy, I'm going to start with you, because you're a designer, so you're going in people's homes and dealing directly.
This hits right to my heart, because so much is about the conversation in the beginning and the discovery process. And so what we'll provide is sort of a master vision, as many of you do, and in case it's, and budget, you know, work within the client's budget. In case something something tips the scale, I'd rather help them work in phase one, what they can afford, rather than something less expensive, less quality that won't last. We invest in the future, which is a good decision in the long run, so it'll last for generations. I'd rather design phase 1 through 3 than phase 1 and a bunch of junky furniture.
And Jerri, as you're putting your furniture together and you're working with, your clients that you work with, how are you explaining that? What are you hearing from them, and how are you explaining to them why they need to do this way and how it's better for everybody?
Yeah, well, a lot of times the entry point of the discussion is a health conversation. So, did you know that this actually has known health effects? Did you know that this makes it performance, but it's also a known carcinogen? Did you know? And it's really just, we don't know what we don't know. And so it's a very leveling conversation to just get the information out there and not make people feel bad or lesser that they don't realize that, because I'm on the supply chain side, so of course I have access to information that people don't, right? And so it's really just coming at it with compassion and kind of a humility, and just saying, here's some information that I happen to know as someone that's on the backside of this. Here's the information to you now to be empowered with. You can do with it what you like. And then it's a stewardship conversation. I think that no matter where you are on the political spectrum, the personal spectrum, we can all agree that this concept of stewardship is something that is very core to our humanity. And I think that you can look at whether it's stewarding natural resources, stewarding your gifts as a creative, stewarding your client's home. That's something that everybody can relate to, feel comfortable with, and really put their hearts and their efforts behind. And so that is what I continually go back to, because it kind of removes all the other stuff and gets really to the core of what this is about. And it's all about stewarding. So that really hits it for me. That usually wins the conversation.
Jules, I'm going to ask you, so for the designers that you work with and people that you work with, what are some of your recommendations for how they can promote the sustainability messaging, right? So again, sustainability is such a broad spectrum because it affects health, it affects the climate, it affects the earth. There's so many different things, and everybody has a different passion maybe for why they want that sustainability in their products or in their homes or in their building materials. What are some of the ways that designers now can approach their clients to make sure that they're getting that sustainability message across, that that's what you're doing to help the planet, but also that, this is how they can help the planet? How do you communicate that?
I think a lot of it is the interior designers actually mentioning that quite early on in conversations, just saying this is part of who I am, and if you're choosing to work with me, this is the kind of considerations and the thought process that I have, and doing it in quite a sort of gentle way. As you said, there's lots of people who are a bit scared of it, and maybe aren't as bought in that we all are, that when it comes really naturally to us. So a lot of the interior designers we work with will reiterate that they'll have a really beautiful finish that suits them. There's also a lot of the designers that I work with focus on a kind of feeling and aesthetic, and encourage their clients to keep an open mind, particularly looking for antiques. And if they shop from our website as well, what's on the website changes all the time. So they'll say, we might be aiming for this, but actually, there might be different options that come up with the time when we're ready to purchase. So I think it's also about having an open mind and not being totally focused on one product that they saw an influencer have, or a celebrity having in their home, etc. So I think it all goes back to that communication thing, and also the word kindness jumps to mind, being kind to our planet, and generally we are all kind people, and that's really what it is. And once you explain that, it seems really basic and really obvious that we should be treading carefully on the planet, and by making these choices, it doesn't always have to be the most expensive. I think lots of people worry that the sustainable choice is the more expensive choice, but actually there's areas that might be more expensive, but we can save money here because we were going to buy a new piece there, and actually you've got a lovely sofa, so actually we reupholster that saves us money, which means we can buy the more expensive paint that is a mineral paint and is having a low impact. So it's having to be more creative as well.
I think the problem too is that people think it's harder work to recycle and be sustainable and all that, and I mean, I meet with resistance just in simple, recycle your can and your bottle. And, I mean, there's so many things that don't happen around here. And, I'm the recycle police. And, I mean, and just for these small baby steps. I mean, and these are giant steps over here. But, I'm trying to get people to start with just the small steps of let's just simply put this here and not in this can. And so that we can try to make a little bit of a difference. And it's amazing how many people just say, that's just too much effort. I don't want to deal with it. And I think that's a big problem that we have to deal with, to change the mindset of the next generation of, let's do the right thing.
Are there questions that you feel designers and retailers should be asking when they're walking around looking at products? Obviously, vintage, if you can recycle a piece of furniture, that's wonderful, but in Universal, it's all new, right?
Right.
So are there questions that, like you talked about the packaging and the recycling of styrofoam and things like that, are there questions that your customers should be asking as they're walking around and looking at pieces to make sure that they're getting that sustainability? Like, what are some of the questions you think designers or customers might want to ask at Universal to make sure that there is at least some sustainability element in what they're purchasing that will, that they can, because it's a story and you can tell your clients as well, that gives that, it kind of gives you a leg up, because to say, hey, I got this from Universal, and do you know that they recycle all their styrofoam and this and that kind of thing? What are some of the questions they might ask you or ask a sales associate here to make sure that they're getting that sustainability story?
Again, I'm not out on the floor every day to get these
realize
questions.
that. Yeah.
Sorry, but I mean, I would
Yeah.
just, and I hope all of our sales reps know to say that those are the efforts that we're making here, just at least in this facility, and that we are looking into all of these other yarns and fabric companies and things that, that we push to try to make a difference for the upholstery. And we always look at different cushion manufacturers and, maybe some of these our customers, and they can ask the questions like, what do you guys want from us, because I'm just trying to capture this world here and do what I can at this facility. So I'm sorry.
I think some of the-
some of
No, I
these
think that's
answers.
wonderful.
I was, sorry, Lucy.
No, I was just going to ask, because some of the questions, we have a question
I
right there.
get to you in 1 minute.
I was just going to say that as a designer who cares about this kind of stuff, I find it's really hard to get the information. Most of the salespeople I talk to at various companies, not Universal specific, but they don't really know. And I often have to ask a lot of people and go down a lot of layers to just find out what's inside, what's it made of, where is it made, who made it.
Well, and some people don't want to share certain aspects of that because that's, at least in my contracts, considered proprietary information.
Right,
So it's very challenging.
Yeah, so, I hope that the future has this information being much more transparent and accessible to people who do care about that.
Well, I will say, just to pop in really fast, sustainability is a huge umbrella. That includes everything from human and worker rights to the carbon impact, right? It's
Yeah,
freaking huge. So
Yeah.
that's very overwhelming. And so even if you're able to get like an MSDS sheet or a material safety data sheet, or like know what the specific PU is that they're using in the foam, it's really like, okay, well then what do you do with that information? I don't even know what to do with some of that information. It's so technical. So I think that's why we continually say low waste, low toxin, low carbon. And that's just what we have decided is furniture specific that we think are the biggest areas of opportunity. But maybe that's where you start and you say, hey, are you doing anything that helps reduce waste? Do you have any product lines that are low toxin or are, pick 3 things. And I think asking more specific questions may help whoever you're asking know where to take that. Because I think if we just say, what are you doing that's more sustainable? It's like we all feel so overwhelmed because it's such a big term and it encapsulates so much, and they don't really know where to take that question next. And so you kind of get that runaround effect that's like, oh my gosh, who knows what this means?
I was thinking to perhaps the sales team, they come and they're knowledgeable about the new styles and the new direction and trends, but maybe there's the education piece that they need that would help us, and they'd know those answers, they'd have that information. Maybe that's something that just in general, the
Are there
furniture.
questions that you ask when you're sourcing?
Definitely, yes. Where's your wood come from? I'm from, Minnesota, and our lumber It's the trees are being knocked down left and right, and we work hard with our wonderful company called Meno, and they recycle barn wood and everything, which we love redoing in cabins. But is asking the question, where's your lumber coming from? Is it from a safe forest? Where are the products being built? And, where's your warehouse? Asking all those kind of questions.
Can I just add as well? I think it's also really important to think about when you've bought your beautiful piece from Universal, how do you look after it? How do you repair it? And because once you've spec this in your client's home, what would be really great is if you ask the supplier, like, oh, if that button comes off, can I get a second one? If this is in direct sunlight, will it get damaged and degrade? So it's all of these things about, even once we've made that purchase, how can we make sure it does last the generations? Can it be reupholstered? And can I continually keep on top of like that beautiful wood? How do I look after it? Do I put beeswax on it? Things like that. I think a lot of people think about, what's in it and when I can buy it, when it's in my home, but it's also about once you've got it, making sure that you're maintaining it.
We had a question in the back.
Yes, ma'am. So I was hoping to hear a little more about PFAS specifically and how you recommend bridging the gap between performance and sustainability.
Oh, I would love to answer this question.
Oh, you go.
Well, I would, if you want very quick and easy, find people that carry Valdez Fabrics, which is most of this market. They're one of the largest and oldest textile mills, still based in the United States. So from a carbon footprint perspective, it's being used within a 500-mile radius of where it's being produced. Their inside-out line, which I accidentally said was sustain earlier, but that's also one of their lines. The inside-out line, which is so prevalent, you'd be shocked. You can use it indoors, outdoors, gorgeous. I actually have a bunch in my purse. I'll show it to you.
We have those fabrics upstairs on 3.
Universal has a ton. So go in, say, do you carry any inside-out textiles by Valdez Weavers? That's going to be the collection of true performance textiles that are indoor outdoor that use that Sequal initiative polyester. So it's 100% seal it or plastic. It's inherently performance because it's plastic. It's like Tupperware on a micro scale. It's woven together. No water can pass through or anything else for that matter. It doesn't stain. And then it, because of that, will not have any PFAS chemicals added to it for any performance reasons because it doesn't need it. So that's
It's inherent.
It's
Inherent in the
But with the
material.
PFAS question, because there is
Yeah,
PFAS
yes.
in a lot of things beyond just, you can't get everything at Inside
Yeah.
Out, at Valdez Weavers
Yeah.
necessarily. And you even with rugs and things like that, you're gonna run into this. What are the levels? I think one of the
Yeah.
questions too is like, what questions do you ask to make sure that the level of PFAS that's in a product is safer than, I know it's changed a lot. I know for Krypton, they've taken out a lot of the fluorocarbons and things like that, and everybody is trying to make those chemicals safer.
Yeah.
So what are some of the questions that you can ask to make sure that if there is PFAS in a product, it's not going to be as dangerous as it may have been 5 years ago?
Well, any PFAS is not good. Any
I
lead
do
is
re-
not good. So I would say if it's there's a million things you can buy in this world, buy another one. Sorry, hate to be that hardlined, but that's what it is, y'all. None.
So I'm actually a material scientist.
Yeah.
And
Preach, brother.
I get a little frustrated when I just hear about PFAS.
Yeah,
Because PFAS covers 1%
One.
of forever chemicals.
exactly right, exactly
If you're
right.
not fluorine-free, you're poisoning the world.
Yep, yep, yeah,
So I hate, I'm trying to get that across the industry.
Yeah.
I work so hard at that.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
PFAS needs to be no FAS. And a lot of times what happens is these things change because of regulation, right? So it's like, okay, you see, and right now PFAS is actually being driven at the state level. So we all know California tends to drive a lot of legislation at the state level. That's for decades affected the upholstery industry. I live in Colorado. The state of Colorado actually was one of the first 5 states in the United States to just start to enact PFAS restrictions on manufacturers that sell certain products. Those products, as of January 1 of this year, include outdoor furniture, and they've got a staged release of that legislation that will prohibit indoor furniture from having it as well. So if you guys have clients in Maine, Colorado, New York, California, and I can't remember the other one, I think it might be Connecticut, you're not even going to be able to send product there that has PFAS on it technically because it's been outlawed in those states at the manufacturing level, but you should know that because you have clients that are all over the country. So any PFAS is not good.
Gabrielle? Sorry.
Yeah, certified Aquatex or, GOTS, or there's so many things out there that are available for kids furniture, for example, but there's not anything available for adult, more common area furniture, and it's a lot easier for us to quickly see it, be able to spec it, and also great for marketing, for you guys as well, so.
Well, a lot of what happens is the components themselves will be the ones that carry the certification, but the finished goods require different certifications. So a lot of the times, what I know from being very close with the manufacturers is they are using FSC certified wood, right, to make their upholstery frames. That certification is for the wood. That upholsterer can casually let you know that that's the case, but they can't then say that that finished good that's assembled with that wood is FSC certified, because the entire finished product wasn't. So it just depends on what your interest is. Are you looking for low waste? Are you looking for low toxin? Are you looking for low carbon? That's going to direct what type of certification you're most interested in. And then most often the certification is going to be on the material, not the finished good. There are certifications, however, that encompass the whole finished piece, and that would be Green Guard is kind of the most common one that you see. But back to the textiles, there are a lot of textiles that do carry the Green Guard Gold certification, and even some fiber fill on certain mattresses. So you can look at those components and at least know that those are the Green Guard aspects.
It's that finished piece in your home.
I know.
New furniture smell that we kind of like, but it's actually really not.
Super toxic.
Formaldehyde. Yeah, so it's more about the sustainability for us is obviously the product itself, but the implications it has on the consumer and their health.
Yeah.
Long term, that's hard to directly relate, but it is kind of that. It is something that I'm
Look at the Green Science Policy Institute. They're a part of UC Berkeley. Arlene Bloom was just listed as the first ever Forbes top 50 sustainability innovators. They've never done a sustainability list, and they just put out one this year, and she was on there. And her heart and soul is the research, and they put out unbelievably publicly available and very digestible research about the real science that's linking some of these chemicals and certain chemical classes to known health effects. So look at the Green Science Policy Institute. That's an amazing resource.
And that's our hour. I mean, I think we could talk about this for another 2 hours, but that's our hour. So I really like to thank Lucy, Jerri, Jules, and Janine for all of your insights. They were all phenomenal, and what a great conversation. And what we know now is that it's still muddy waters, but it's getting there, and the more we communicate, the better. And I think we all need to speak to the gentleman in the back.
Yes.
We want to know the other 99% of bad chemicals in our homes. So.
One recommendation too, before it comes off Netflix, I encourage everybody to watch the movie Dark Waters.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
They remove it November 1st. That is the most relevant movie to interior design.
100,000%.
Very good to know.
100,000%.
Thank you.
Thank you again. This was a fabulous panel.
Thank you,
so much.
Diane. Thank you.